Quibus wanted us to look at Impala. Now, this is one share that just skyrocketed to the top in 2019. And we, again, when that 40-week moving average changed into a support, it just basically escalated to higher levels. Now, one must be careful, especially if the share is so toppish to short it and start, think that it might pull back. Yes, it is possible. But have a look at the stochastic indicator. Since about July 2019, this share has been in overbought territories and even above extremely overbought territories since about October. And it still continued to rise. So the stochastic is just a probability indicator, the probability that it might pull back and retrace, the probability when it's oversold that it might reach for higher levels. It's not a definite. So if you combine that with your candles and the price action, because that's the confirmation of what the buyers and sellers think of the share, I cannot see a turnaround pattern yet. This spinning candle, some might even, call it a doji candle. Those long lower shadows on this candle implies optimism. It tells me that there were still investors that bought the share when it pulled back. And that is not an indication for me to start to short the share yet, Quibus. We must, and technically, especially if the share had such a rally, and there is still so much positive news around them and the platinum price that we are going to look at in a second, I would technically wait for lower highs and confirm a loss of momentum before I start to short the share, or wait for a tweezer top or a double top, some confirmation that there is a turnaround, an evening star formation, anything that might show weakness. Technically, you can use obviously these lows. I think they are too close. Otherwise, you can use 134 Rand 20 and maybe see below that level. That might be the first sign of weakness. But it also might not be, because the momentum to the top is clearly in place. If I look at last week's high, it was 154 Rand 65. If I pull back and I put this share into perspective and I zoom out, you can see if we go back to around 2011, this share traded around 233 Rand, and back in 2008 around 363 Rand 68. So yes, this share still might have lots of leg to the upside. It definitely might have. So I would be very careful to short it. Yes, it is overbought, but I would wait for technical lower highs, and maybe they're around that, below that 134 level, as I said, maybe a sign of weakness. But at the moment, the momentum to the top is clearly in place. And what is also a little bit of a concern is the fact that this 40-week moving average is so far away from the share. So you might see a pullback closer to it to normalize it, but I can't see that on the graph yet. The momentum is in place. Richard wanted us also to look at platinum, the actual platinum price. And we've said it before, if $1,000 on the platinum price changes into a support and keeps it a support, we can see a lot higher levels on the platinum price. Now this week, and remember, this is a weekly graph, so this candle is not finished yet. So if on a Friday close, this graph, the platinum price, keeps that $1,000 as support, we can easily see levels at around 1,045, 1,106, and even go and test that resistance of about $1,194 again. Only when this lower band, this lower line that I've drawn in there, changes into a resistance, and that is waiting at around 937. Only when that level changes into a resistance can we maybe expect some downside. Yes, it is overbought because it has had a massive rally. And some might even say, Christelle, this is a skew head and shoulder formation. But the negativity of that formation was wiped off the table when these right shoulders became a support. So when that $950 changed into a support, the negativity of this formation became obsolete and the momentum to the top can continue. Again, if I zoom out in the platinum price, you can see that it's actually a commodity that can still have a lot of legs to the upside. I mean, we're talking about $1,200 back into 2015. So it will be interesting to see if that psychological level and that strong resistance of $1,000 can remain a support on the platinum price. Paul wanted us to look at Demond, listed on the New York Stock Exchange. And Paul, I can see why you want us to look at this share. Why? Because there's a couple of positive things on this graph. One, it is oversold. And if you think of the record highs that the US are experiencing at the moment, there are only a few shares that are still oversold in the US market. But I don't have confirmation of a turnaround. I don't have my 2 moving averages within my indicator, hasn't broken upwards yet. I don't have a turnaround pattern on these candles that can imply optimism. Yes, I might be sitting with a possible bullish engulfing candle this week, but again, this is a weekly graph and this candle is not finished yet. It's still in the making. So I would want to see at least higher lows. So what is that? This share needs to bounce, pull back a little bit, and bounce again. And when that previous resistance, no matter where it is, changes into a support again, the higher low will be confirmed, and I would be able to say, yes, the buyers are back, and I think there's a lot of interest. I think there might be an opportunity to accumulate the share. Otherwise, you can also wait for this upper band of the fallen wedge formation to change into a support. This upper band is waiting, if I project it, depending on how long it takes to reach it, it sits around $68.42. But take note, Paul, how close that is to my 40-week moving average, and that is waiting there around $68.85. And have a look. The last time DuPont changed and kept the 40-week moving average into a support was in September 2018. So for me, I would wait for a turnaround pattern, and if I don't have that, I would wait for higher lows. If not, I would wait for that 40-week moving average or this upper band to change into a support. That's just my strategy. Some traders try to get it as low as possible before confirmation. So it really depends on your strategy and how you trade. But again, below these lows at around $59.10, we can assume that the momentum to the top will continue. And what I also always like to do is go back on the share and see what the patterns were, because a share and technical graphs is the heartbeat of the share. And some of them, they're also individualists. So some of them you can see that, it bounced and then it retraced, and it bounced and it retraced, and those are lower highs. Maybe I should wait for a higher low before I buy as confirmation, because sometimes the share, if I look at its pattern, seems to bounce and retrace and might be disappointing you at some stage. So I would maybe wait for that confirmation before I start to accumulate, unless you buy in small bits and protect yourself should it retrace even further. Because it might be, if this share continues to rise and the US market in total come back, it will be a very good indication that the sellers have dried up in the share and that the buyers are keen to buy it. OSTK, Overstock, another share on our US market that is still in oversold territory, has got a beautiful divergence to the upside, and that is seen as positive. But again, I don't have higher lows here. I might be sitting with a possible head and shoulder formation, and only when the share changes these levels around $22.43 into a support, which is where my left shoulder is sitting, can I say the negativity is wiped out. It's a thin share, there's not a lot of volume, and technically I would like the share to change this 40-week moving average into a support. Why? Because previously, if we look back here in September and August in 2019, the share did change it into support with strong bullish candles, but there was not enough buying interest to keep it above it, and it retraced again. So I would wait for that support, 40 moving average waiting at $12.70 to change into a support. Otherwise, again, this upper band of the share waiting at around $15.55 if I project it, depending on how long it takes to change that level into a support. Technically, that level needs to change into a support and keep it one in order for us to believe that the momentum to the top will continue. Mohammed wanted us to look at General Electric. And we can see that our viewers know their graphs if they can identify US opportunities that are coming from a low base, despite the fact that the US market is in record territory. Now, we've mentioned previously, Mohammed, about that cup and handle formation. And it looks like it's got multiple handles, but what is optimistic for me about this General Electric graph is the fact that that 40-week moving average has remained a support. That is seen as very, very positive. Obviously, the next strong resistance the share needs to change into a support and keep it a support is waiting there around $11.87. A strong resistance was waiting there around $13.24 if you look back in that consolidation phase here in 2018. Only when the 40-week moving average changes into a resistance again, waiting there around $10.08, will I be concerned about General Electric. I think there's still some nice upside. Again, if I zoom out, you can see this is a potential price action that can still see a lot higher levels, but it needs to keep that 40-week moving average then a support. Please continue to send your requests through via email or Twitter. We will see you next week. Have a fabulous week. Cheers.